guys. Rock star.
That I said. And good afternoon, Coronado Rotary, and welcome to a little bit of a rescheduled meeting here. We're actually going to go back to our original format. We, as you well know, have been watching the news, and we're delighted to have Congressman Peters and his Chief of Staff here today, and it's been a very dynamic week in Washington, which translates to our schedule, but we're going back to the original schedule, which starts with our invocation and pledge from Dave Knott, please.
Here is a Cherokee story. A young boy came to his grandfather filled with anger at another boy who had done him injustice. The old grandfather said to his grandson, "Let me tell you a story. I too at times have felt great hate for those that have taken so much with no sorrow for what they do. But hate wears you down, and hate does not hurt your enemy. Hate is like taking poison and wishing your enemy would die. I have struggled with these feelings many times. It is as if there are two wolves inside of me. One wolf is good, does no harm. He lives in harmony with all around him and does not take offense when no offense is intended. He will only fight when it is right to do so and in the right way. But the other wolf is full of anger. The littlest thing will set him into a fit of temper. He fights everyone all the time for no reason. He cannot think because his anger and hate are so great. It is helpless anger, because anger will change nothing. Sometimes it is hard to live with these two wolves inside of me, because both of these wolves try to dominate my spirit." The boy looked intently at his grandfather's eyes and asked, "Which wolf will win, grandfather?" The grandfather smiled and said, "The one I feed." Follow me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. All right, quick commercial announcement to reiterate. If you have not turned off the Wi-Fi on your cell phones, please do so. And if you are joining us on Zoom and you have your video feed activated, please disable that so we can make sure we have full bandwidth to get us all the way from DC. Up next, past President Dan Orr. Welcome back, sir.
Hey, Dan. Heard you missed me. I came back. Okay. As far as I know, no visiting Rotarians checked in with me. So we will do guests of Rotarians starting on my left, your right. Okay. Ah, Howard.
Thank you, ex-President Dan and former President Dan and President Bob. I would like to first introduce Marianne Pintar. Marianne is Scott Peters' Chief of Staff for the last 15 years and has been with Scott, for the last 10 years, and has been with Scott for 15 years. And she's an absolutely amazing, amazing person. And if you have any issues, just contact Marianne. She'll be happy to help. I would also like to introduce my wife, Jean.
Indicted President. Indicted President. No, I'm sorry. President Bob, fellow Rotarians and guests. This man needs no introduction, but my guest today is Mayor Bailey of Coronado.
Past presidents and fellow Rotarians, my guest is Kathy Cunningham from Phoenix.
Okay. Is that it? Oh. Rick.
Past President Dan, President Bob, fellow Rotarians, please welcome my wife, Ann.
Frank.
Whoa. Goody.
My special guest, J.T.
Greenleaf.
Very special. That it? For the 4 minutes, we're done.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know if it's the speaker today or what, but I thought we were going to start introducing some visiting Rotarians who actually are on our rolls. But good to have a lot of you here that we don't necessarily see every week. All right, up next, I think how about Red Badgers? Let's talk about you guys and gals. And if I call your name, would you please stand so we can wave at you and put names to faces? Hennedy. I'm going to get this right. It's Gennady. Horosho. Otson Horosho. Rena Clancy. Where's Rena? Oh, okay. Roger, clap. There we go. Our city manager, Tina Friend. Andrew Gade. There we go. Arlene Inch. Hello, Arlene. Chris Kelly. Evelyn Markell. All right. Amanda Manier. Chris Shearhorn. All right. And Sarah Stillman. All right. Have I missed any Red Badge?
Brenda Jones. Brenda Jones.
Brenda Joe. Oh, where's Brenda Joe? There we go. Okay. Did I miss any others? And Joe Malloy. Why? You know, I should be reading off my own list instead of the one that gets handed. All right.
Blue man's list.
All right, and all right. So yeah, look, Joe is on there. How about that? Welcome, Joe. And by the way, if you're hearing me, particularly if you're hearing me out in Zoom, you can thank Joe for that because he solved a last-minute electron crisis to put that together. Okie-doke. Updates. All right, a lot happening in October. All right, we have Flags on the Avenue coming up here on October 9th, next week. Our monthly social is going to be a lot of fun. And by the way, why don't, as I cruise through these coming up next, I'm just going to give you the highlights, and then we're going to give you the details here. Beach cleanup board meeting there on the 24th, and we're going to reinstitute our alternate meeting, and we've got details on all of these with slides coming up. So if we go to the first one and turn it over to Doug St. Dennis to talk about our whiskey tasting theme.
Thank you, President Bob, fellow Rotarians and guests. So this is our monthly social. Mostly this is, I want you new people and you Red Badgers to know how much fun we have together. I mean, we're changing the world, but so the next, it's always the second Thursday of the month, and the next one is at my house on Parkview Place, and you bring a bottle of wine and or an appetizer to share, but this time it's also a whiskey tasting, which I've had before, and they're so fun. Look in your cabinet, and if you have like this much whiskey left and think, when will I drink that? Bring it to my house, and we'll all share, and I'll have all the setups. I'll have ice and soda and Coke and lots of stuff. So please come, we want you there. It's so fun. Thank you.
By the way, the reason she's doing another whiskey tasting is because there was plenty left over from the last time we did it. All right, let's see. Next, let's talk about our 100th. And Suzanne, are you here? There you are.
Thank you. I actually volunteered for this. I can't believe it, but I did. I didn't have enough to do. So we're having our 100th anniversary on March 7th, 2026. And we're going to have a book. We're going to have a gala dinner. We're going to come up with some kind of gift or project for the city. Looking for a chairperson for that. We'll have an ice cream social that Suzanne and Fred will be helping us with. And this is just the first of many quarterly updates. I'm not going to come up here and speak too much about it over the next few years. And if you want to join the committee, please send me an email or text me. Don't tell me, because I won't remember. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, next up, let's talk about our upcoming alternate meeting. Sarah Sheverton, who, by the way, is now leading this committee. Thank you, Sarah.
So, President Bob, fellow Rotarians, and especially Zoomer Rotarians. So, we are really excited to get back to the alternative meeting, which gives people who can't come to the lunchtime meeting an opportunity to have camaraderie and listen to speakers. And the great part about this meeting is not only does it have pizza, it has beer and wine and alternative beverages as well. So it's really fun. Our first meeting is going to be coming up on October 26th. It will be at the hospital at 265 Soledad, so in the auditorium there. The format is the same as before COVID. We check in at 6. We eat between 6 and 6:30. We have the business portion between 6:30 and 7, and we have our guest speaker from 7 to 7:30. Registration will be coming out from Jamie probably in about a week when she gets back from vacation. So please, please sign up, especially people who can't make it to the lunch meetings. The cost is a minimal $20. So you'll either pay online, or if not, we only accept check and cash at the door. Our guest speaker will be Johnny Cushing, who is a brand new Red Badger. If you recall, he is a former F-18 Navy fighter pilot, and now he is currently a flight instructor for the new F-35s. So, yeah, pretty impressive. So I think this will be an exciting meeting. It'll be fun, and I'm looking for more people to join my committee. So please send me an email, or come see me, or text me. Looking forward to it. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to tell you, the first meeting is October. We're going to take off November and December because of the holidays, and we'll go back again January through so on. Third Thursday of the month, except for February, which will be the fourth Thursday, just based on availability. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Sarah. And since she was prodding me, that first alternate meeting, I believe, is going to be chaired by past President Tom Mitchell. Stay tuned. All right, what have we been seeing around town? Well, it's fairly quiet, but we're still doing a lot. Great, next slide, please. We're doing so much work down at the food bank. So here are the lead lines making their run last Wednesday, and Ron Bernetti beat them. I guess the cupboard must have been bare by the time Paul got there, and Karen, because Ron went the day before, so I don't know what was left, but anyway, thanks guys. Really wonderful work you're doing. Okay, I think quick commercial announcement. If you guys and gals are into walking, or even, I don't think they'll stop you from running this, but the district is hosting this walk to end polio, and it's on the 22nd of October, and if you're interested, you can go to the district website and sign up. And let's just look at the last slide real quick. It's 3.5 miles, and goes through five bridges, so it might be somewhat scenic and interesting if you are interested in that. So okay, all right. Hennady, would you like to do your Who Am I?
Hello, Rotarians. What about me? My name is Hennady Bagdasaryan.
There you go.
My name is Hennady Bagdasaryan. I am currently 25 years old. So I'm Armenian, but I'm born in Ukraine, Mariupol city. So in my years, I played semi-professional basketball as a tender player for over 6 years. My team was a 6-time champion of Ukraine, and we also achieved 5th place in European competitions. I was also interested in combat sports like boxing and Muay Thai, something like that. I have visited more than 15 countries, and I have lived in 4 of them for a significant part of my life. I am involved in a family business related to transportation, and I have passion for extreme powerlifting right now. So also, 1 year ago, my mother and my young brother, they arrived to Granada, and they live with me right now. Actually, my younger brother right now studying at San Diego University. That's it. Thank you.
All right.
Later.
Good. All right, Brenda Jones has a Rotary Minute.
Thank you, President Bob. Fellow Rotarians, for my Rotary Minute, I went to the district website and I looked up more about the youth exchanges because I thought what a wonderful opportunity for our local young people to take in part of this. I found out they can go as young as 15 years old, which I think is fantastic because the friends they meet doing this exchanges, they'll be lifetime friends, and what a wonderful way to find out about how other people live in different parts of the world. So there are 3 types of opportunities for students. One is summer camps, which is 2 to 3 weeks. Then there's short-term exchanges, which is 3 to 6 weeks in a foreign country, and then that student comes here for 3 to 6 weeks. And then there's long-term exchanges, where it's an entire academic year, and the student would live with 2 to 3 families abroad during that time. So I thought, what are some of these summer camps? And they all sounded so fun, I thought they should not make them just for students, they should have them for adults too. So I'll tell you about some of them. The first is learn the Finnish way of life and learn about nature. Sailing on Lake Como in Italy. Go to Turkey, explore the cuisine, do cooking workshops and sightseeing in Istanbul. And then for the students who are probably going to be future Rotarians, there are volunteering camps. So in Lithuania, they have a Rotary camp for orphans, and in the Czech Republic, you can take part in meaningful activities for disabled youngsters. So that's my Rotary Minute. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brenda Jones. Well, okay, we have, as you know, a very exciting program here, and we have a starting act, actually, which is really fortunate for us. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Jane, can you hear me back there?
Sadly enough.
Okay. There we go. Anyway, I want the audio to be working, because what we're going to hear is going to be really interesting and good to have at this meeting. So we're delighted, in addition to having our featured speaker, Congressman Peters, here momentarily, we have Mayor Bailey with us, and he has graciously accepted our invitation to stand and update us on a couple of things and take a couple of Q&As until 1 o'clock when we welcome the Congressman. So, Mayor Bailey, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good afternoon, Rotarians. I will be updating you all today on an issue that has been very challenging for the city over the past several years, and that's the issue of housing. And after I give a brief update on housing, I'll be turning it over to Councilmember Duncan, who serves on the city's subcommittee for the Tijuana sewage issue. Before I get into both of these issues, I do want to point out that as challenging as these issues have been, the progress we have made has really only been possible because we have had a unanimous council support from Councilmember Donovan, currently serving on this current council, as well as previous councils, including Councilmember Sankey and Councilmember Hines. And also progress due to very competent city staff led by our city manager, Tina Friend. So I do want to acknowledge all of their involvement on these issues. From my standpoint, the two biggest issues facing our city are our housing and the Tijuana sewage issue. So you may recall that this housing saga has been taking place for the past several years. The state of California goes through what's known as a housing cycle every roughly 4 to 6 years. And that housing cycle lasts, in this case, from 2021 through 2029. The city of Coronado was allocated over 900 housing units to accommodate during this process. That's a lot. We currently have roughly 11,000 housing units in Coronado. So to increase the amount of housing units by 900 is a really big ask. And obviously can be very impactful to the quality of life we have here. So for the past couple years, we've gone through various litigation and also been working very closely with the state of California to try to identify a path forward that would allow us to be compliant with state housing law while also providing the least amount of impact to the quality of life that all of our residents have come to enjoy. And I'm proud to share that because of the leadership of this current city council and past city councils, as well as our city manager, we believe we have a path forward. So I would like you all to mark your calendars, if you will, for this Friday. If you go to projectcoronado.org, the city will be sharing for really the first time a new draft housing element that we believe will allow us to be compliant with the state housing laws. So that's projectcoronado.org. It will be released this Friday. And then we can pre-party. Instead of going to Doug St. before we go to Doug St. Dennis's for the Rotary Social Hour, we can pre-party on October 12th in the Coronado Council chambers, because that's where we'll be doing a workshop, where we'll be taking the plan that you'll be able to see this Friday, and we'll be receiving your feedback on that plan on October 12th from 4:30 to 5:30, I believe. Check the website, it's on there. Somewhere around 4:30 to 5:30. It's before Doug, so we worked out Doug in advance that we didn't want to have conflicts because we wanted you to be able to attend both. After that workshop, the City Council will be considering adopting this draft housing element at the council meeting on October 17th. And so the reason it's really important for you to attend is because this is a very short turn. We are currently out of compliance with state housing laws, so we need to get this done as soon as possible. But we don't want to short circuit the process. We really want to hear from the community on what we're presenting. So I'd encourage you all to attend that workshop. And if you can't attend, please let us know your thoughts online. Some changes you can expect to see. So you can expect to see some changes to the zoning. You can expect to see some changes for how the city of Coronado treats ADUs and carriage houses. And these are the elements that we kind of want your feedback on. Now, this process we're going through has been a pretty painful process, and to speak very candidly, it has been a bit nonsensical. As you all are probably aware, we have received housing allocation based on jobs on the Navy base that we have really no bearing on whether or not they build housing or not. But the good news is that we have kind of set the stage working with state officials to hopefully introduce legislative changes so that the next housing cycle, which is almost underway, actually can take that into account. And then it'll better align the incentive structure for local, state, and perhaps federal agencies working together to provide true workforce housing on Navy base. So I want to leave it right there because I know we also want to hear from Councilmember John Duncan before I turn it over to Congressman Peters. But is there any quick questions I could answer on that?
How many units?
We will be making a good faith effort to reach the 900 plus housing units. Stay tuned. All right, mark your calendars. All right, and now please join me in welcoming Councilmember John Duncan, who serves on the city's Tijuana Sewage Subcommittee.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought the mayor was going to use a line and say there is good news, bad news on the sewage situation. So I'll try to go relatively quickly, but I will go back in time just briefly to when we reconstituted our sewage subcommittee on council and got to work on this. I went in there pretty wide-eyed and happy, thinking it's a tough ask, but we just need to get the second half of the funding for the new plant at the border, which the first half of the funding was obtained in 2020 via the USMCA. And honestly, Coronado had a large part in helping get that first $300 million for the plant. Since 2020, it's been going through the process, the EPA's review, and finally that $300 was arriving to the IBWC. 300 million, sorry. Is it 300? I'm a little too relaxed. I love all you people. Anyways, thank you. The 300 million arrived, and I go to my meeting with the EPA, USMCA working group, IBWC's there, everybody's there. And I go in wide-eyed and happy. We're all going to work together to get the other 300 million, and we're going to get this project done. They then announced the following three things. One, the plant that already exists at the border treating sewage on the Tijuana River is not working properly. We have $150 million in deferred maintenance. Then they announced our maintenance budget, which is in this year's federal budget, has been cut about 20 million from what it's been to 50 for the last couple of years. Then they announced we're going to take that 150 million from the 300 million for the new plant. So now my mind goes, okay, we don't need 300 million, now we need 450 million. And at the end of that meeting, I asked the commissioner of the IBWC, how am I supposed to tell people in Coronado or in Imperial Beach that they should have confidence we're going to get this new plant built and that you're going to run it, since the one you're running now isn't working? So that was an interesting question. There was one more piece of really bad news, then I'll tell you some good news and finish up. But the other piece of bad news was, oh, by the way, since we only have a quarter of the money for the new plant, right, the 150 million instead of the 300, we're not going to start on it because we can't contract with agencies, contractors to start work on a project, the new huge sewage plant we need, without more guarantee that we'll eventually be able to pay them. So that is where the bad news has been. The good news is we have had great luck, particularly in success working with Congressman Peters' office in trying to come up with solutions. Some of the pressure that's been created has caused a few good things to happen. The EPA has come out and said, no, we'll stand by the starting of the work on the new plant as we work towards getting the rest of the funding. So that bad announcement's been reversed. It is going out to design and bid right now. $40 million gallons a day of raw sewage directly on the beach, no outfall pipe, no treatment whatsoever. The Mexican government, and Congressman Peters has been pretty clear in explaining this to people in a little bit of a different fashion. Because obviously most people look at Mexico as the problem, right? That's where all the sewage is coming from. But in regard to that plant south of the border, Mexico has allocated $150 million. When I first heard that, I'm like, okay, but are they going to spend it? Is it going to happen? They have stepped up and moved forward faster than the US was on fixing our plant. And they are putting that out to bid, and that is going forward right now. It's going out to bid this fall. The other, yeah, it's incredible because that is a huge environmental issue for us and a big part of the problem. Also, the repairs at our current plant at the border have started as well, and they've announced they're going to move forward on those repairs as well as on the design of our new plant. So I would just mention to you that the city, our city manager, council members, the mayor, have been setting up regular meetings with elected officials to help us on how to move forward. Both Congressman Peters' office, last week we met with the California Speaker of the Assembly and another Assembly member. I really do believe, I know I still have my eyes a little wide open and maybe some people may think naive, but I really do believe, it's not naive, that this will get solved and that we are actually at a turning point where all elected officials are interested in pushing for it. It doesn't hurt that it's a 2024 election coming up, and if we really keep at it, we should get there. I know Congressman Peters may talk about some things he's been trying to do with appropriations in the budget on this issue, so I'll leave those to him. But thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Mayor Bailey, for your time today and those updates. Well, I want to to say what an honor it is to have our representative, Congressman Scott Peters, join us virtually today. And I know he had planned to be here in person, and we all know why he's not. So it's been a crazy week in D.C., and we're certainly going to hear some about that. I'd like to turn over to Jill Olin now, who will introduce our congressman.
Thank you, Bob. Fellow Rotarians, Scott Peters has been a pleasant fixture in San Diego for decades. Scott and I worked together at the City of San Diego, where he was the City Council President and I was the Deputy Operating Officer for Homeland Security and Public Safety. Scott and his staff were always so enjoyable to work with. He was always calm, measured, and mannerly, which really goes a long way, especially these days. And he always had a twinkle in his eye, which I will get to in a minute. Y'all remember Ibrahim, my Afghan interpreter who spoke here a couple weeks ago, and side note, had the baby girl yesterday. Scott and his staff, including Mary Ann and Jason Berkovich, assisted me greatly in navigating the complex process of Ibrahim's SIV, as well as the SIVs for 9 other family members of my other interpreter in Virginia. Scott was a steady beacon of calm that provided tremendous emotional support as well after the fall of Kabul. You can't find guys like Scott Peters much anymore. We're so fortunate to have him as our representative and our friend. Now back to the twinkle that I mentioned. When I joined the Sanders administration in 2006, the city had just gone through tremendous political upheaval, none of which I appreciated at the time. A new form of government was established called the strong mayor. As part of the mayor's executive staff, that's what we called it. Part of the change created a new city council presidency, and Scott Peters was the first city council president. One day Scott and I were talking about something, and I said, under the strong mayor form of government, and he said, Jill, no, it's actually the strong mayor, strong council form of government. You see that, don't you? Do you see that? Okay. All right. I was grateful for the correction. I should have seen the twinkle. When I casually brought up at the mayor's executive staff meeting the next day that we were a strong mayor, strong council form of government, you could have heard a pin drop. Apparently, I had missed the memo that those were fighting words. Lesson learned, I got my butt chewed, but I never revealed my sources. And look who's still serving, still helping, and still twinkling. Fellow Rotarians, I give you my friend and Congressman Scott Peters.
Thank you, Jill. That's very kind. I really appreciate that. It was great working with you, and it's very nice comments. Also, I face this irony that, we suddenly pulled the plug on business last night, and I could have flown home to be with you, except if I flew home, I would have missed the meeting. So, so I'm staying in D.C. to talk to Coronado. So anyway, it's a pleasure to be with you. I really, I think I spoke at this body one time before. It's a great institution. I love Coronado. I'm so proud of being able to represent you in Congress. I thought what I do today is talk about 3 things. I was going to do it first, just generally talk about the work I do in Congress, what I focus on. Second, the biggest issue we have in the county that my staff in DC and San Diego will tell you we're working on is cross-border sewage. And then the third thing, I'll just talk a little bit about kind of the state of the House of Representatives right now after this week. And maybe, I don't know if there's time for questions, but you also gave me some questions as well. But since Councilmember Duncan was talking before, let me take the sewage thing up front. This is one of the environmental catastrophes in the Western Hemisphere. And it has been exacerbated over the last few years. In 2017, this was a problem. We started working to increase the annual appropriation for the IBWC so that we could take it on. But around 2017, things really started to get bad, and we saw beach closure days really increase. And what's happened in Tijuana that John alluded to is that the sewage plant in Tijuana has stopped working, period. So the city of Tijuana is just discharging raw sewage into the ocean. At the same time, as he said, our plant has been overmatched by growth. It's supposed to process 25 million gallons a day. We needed to expand it to 30 million gallons a day, and that's why we got that money, $300 million associated with the approval of the USMCA trade agreement. And that was a good start. We knew we'd need more, but we knew that that was the kind of money we could use to start to really get going. Really good news is we have now a deal. We have a treaty. They call it a minute with Mexico, where they're going to clean up theirs and we're going to clean up ours. And they've committed, as John said, to spend $145 million on their plant. And as the council member correctly said, they are ahead of us and they're on way to fixing their plant, which is really good news. They're putting real money in, and a partnership with Mexico has been really advantageous for us. So we are wishing them well and really counting on them to do a good job. But they're not the problem. The problem is that the United States owns a sewage treatment plant that it has not maintained. And I've been telling people that this is not a difficult engineering thing. The city of San Diego wastewater department could easily manage this plant, couldn't build it. But we have this problem of this cross-border funding has to come from the federal government. So we had a conversation with IBWC, and after this treaty was passed, and we committed ourselves to fix the plant, then they told us we were $150 million behind on maintenance. I was extremely irritated. This is a hard enough problem without an additional $150 million. And we really started to bang the drums. We've written letters to the Secretary of State. We've had conversations with the White House, with the Director of the Office of Management and Budget. We have their attention. I believe that, and EPA has been great, actually, both under the Trump administration and the Biden administration. The Environmental Protection Agency in Region 9, which is California, have been terrifically helpful. But this is something that they've committed that they want to do. We need about $310 million now through an appropriation. We're trying to get it through a supplemental appropriation. Our Senators Feinstein and Padilla wrote a letter asking for that. Our congressional delegation, we led a letter to join that. Juan Vargas is also is a leader on this. He represents Imperial Beach, which is the other affected community. I represent Coronado. We have an argument, by the way, which is appealing in this presidency, that this is an environmental justice issue. Obviously, Imperial Beach is a working class community. It is, people are breathing fecal dust. It is unacceptable and unfair. Coronado is not by income an environmental justice community, but it's where the South Bay goes to the beach, and beaches are closed all summer. And that's not acceptable, as well as we know that the people who work in tourism in Coronado are not particularly well paid. They stand to lose their jobs if this continues without a promise of a solution. So we are working really hard on it. Mayor Bailey and the council have been tremendous partners. I think Mayor Bailey happens to be a Republican, which is not a common thing always in California, but is pretty common in Congress, and they're in charge of appropriations. And Mayor Bailey has helped reach out to Republicans across the country. By the way, if anyone out there is a political donor, I can say this because I'm not in my office building. You should not give any money to any politician, a Republican, wherever they're from, without them understanding how important this sewage problem is to Coronado. And I hope you'll just make sure that if you know anybody in Congress or in the Senate or running for it, that they understand this is our priority. We have to get this thing fixed. And I would say too, we have a little bit more of a challenge this week because of two departures. Obviously, when we had Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House, she's pretty powerful in terms of helping California, and she was very instrumental in getting that $300 million. We don't have a speaker from California anymore. We did until yesterday. I'm not sure how that's going to play out. It's still early. I haven't talked to Kevin about it, but we need to really pay attention to getting Republicans on board, and I think Kevin was going to be helpful. And obviously, the loss of Senator Feinstein is not nothing either. She was, I think, 6th or 7th in seniority, which is very important. And now, we rely on Senator Padilla, who I actually think is really good. I think he's a senator who wants to get the job done, and he's not a showboat. He's not a show horse. He's a workhorse, as they say. And he's made this a priority as well. So we'll continue working on getting that money. But We just have to keep the story going. Finally, I would just say we're going to do some speeches on the House floor and explain how, if this was Chesapeake Bay, this would get attended to. And, if this was, if this is a place where Washingtonians knew this was going on, this just wouldn't happen. So we just have to elevate it again. And again, local people have been great. In Imperial Beach, Mayor Aguirre, and before her, Mayor Dedina have been really helpful. But we're putting everything we got into this problem. It's our top priority in Congress when we talk about joining what's important to San Diego and in our district with what's happening in Washington. This is the number one issue. It's a catastrophe, and we're on it. I have to say too, Marianne Pintar is there. You should introduce yourself to her. She should wave her hand. She has been the captain of this effort, really almost nationally, because we put her on it. She knows people locally and federally, and so she'll tell you give you any updates or details. But the council member said it very well, and we're happy to partner with them. We have to get this fixed. Let me talk more generally about what I concentrated in Congress, just because it's pretty far away. 3,000 miles is a long way, and that's what I do. I mean, the job. Sometimes they say that the job title and the job responsibilities, representative, are the same. And I am about connecting what's happening in my area, in the San Diego area, what's important there, to Washington, D.C. And you think about what are the economies that drive this region. There's 4 economies that bring money from outside in. One of them is tourism, by the way, just to continue on the theme. Not a lot of federal issues in tourism, except the one we just talked about. But we're lucky to live in a place people pay to visit. The second is the military. About 20% of our jobs are military. And no matter how the region and the economy evolves, we're all going to be a proud military town. We're proud of the Navy, the Marines, and the Coast Guard in particular. We're proud of our role in the national defense, but that's a really important part of our economy as well. It brings resources. It also brings impact. I know that some of the issues with working with traffic abatement around Coronado in particular are of concern. We can talk about that a little bit more. The third is the border. The border, when I was first elected, I asked Jerry Sanders at the Chamber of Commerce, what's the most important investment that the federal government can make to support the business economy in all of San Diego? And he said, reduce border waits. And so we've actually finished construction of the San Ysidro border crossing, which I think is something taxpayers can be proud of, both because it facilitates commerce, but also stops the import of the things that we really are concerned we don't want, whether it's drugs smuggled or guns or smuggled people. But that border creates billions of dollars of economic activity, and it's very important to our region. And then finally, science and technology. We're the home of Qualcomm, and we're the third leading cluster of biotechnology in the country. We have 70,000 people in the life sciences in 1,000 companies. And sure, we have great employers like Pfizer and Eli Lilly, and we're happy to have those big companies. But 1,000 companies, that means there's a lot of scrappy startups trying to solve hard science problems with private risk capital. And we've really worked hard to maintain that ecosystem and to help America appreciate that private investment is really important here as well. Just in terms of investments on defense, the GEM has been the new training campus for Navy SEALs. That's something I worked on when I started on the Armed Services Committee when I first came to Congress. It's a real great facility. I think it was designed by a San Diego architect, not by a cement mason, which some of these buildings look like. And we worked hard to make sure that the traffic in and out worked well. But we're going to see a new. We've installed major improvements to the airfield at Miramar. And again, we're going to be home porting more ships off Naval Base San Diego, again, requiring some of the coordination that I talked about between the federal government and transportation agencies. A couple of national issues I'm working on. First is environment and climate. The country has put aside a historic amount of money for climate investment and transitioning to more various forms of energy, cleaner energy, from all sorts of sources. And my concern is that unless we change the permitting process, which is so slow, we're so used to in America, everything taking forever, we will not see that money used wisely. We either waste it on process or not use it at all. When President Obama put out the TARP, the bailout for the banks, after the bank crisis, we allocated $90 billion for infrastructure. We only spent $27 billion of that because we couldn't get through the permitting process. So California is the worst, but federally, the process we have to go through to build stuff is just inexcusable. It's a waste of money. And whether you are a staunch environmentalist or just a taxpayer who doesn't want to see money wasted, we have to do permit reform to make things go faster. I would also say we're working on the national debt and deficit. So since that time, frankly, under Republicans and Democrats, we have not been really careful about how we've invested money. I mean, our balance sheet as America has to be ready to respond to crises, whether it's something like Ukraine or whether it's something like a pandemic. It's okay to borrow money for those things, but then in good times you have to pay attention to the debt and deficit. And the reason it's important, it's not just some conceptual thing, but now with interest rates up, we're going to be spending more on interest in 10 years out of the federal budget than we do on Medicaid and defense together. And that's ridiculous. What that means is that whether you want to lower taxes or invest in children, I would like to see a child tax credit really help empower families to get out of poverty. But I can't afford that if we're paying all of our money on interest. So it's very difficult to do this in Congress because every little move you talk about is a subject of a partisan attack. So I've teamed up with my friend Bill Huizenga from Michigan, who's a Republican. And we have introduced the Fiscal Commission Act, which would create a commission of experts and members who would come together over the course of the next 14 months, come out with a way for us to make sure that the economy is growing faster than the debt. That's a sustainable fiscal glide path. And put that up for a vote, up or down vote without amendment in both the House and the Senate, and give it to the president to sign. So we won't, like the Simpson-Bowles Commission, have something that never hit the floor. We're going to actually get something to vote on. And it's going to give cover to both sides because you're going to be paying on both sides, which is what I think we would all expect. Part of that probably will deal with the problems we have right now with Social Security, which in 10 years we'll see the lines cross where the amount going out is more than the amount coming in. Now, if that happens, I'm a Democrat who's concerned about benefits, but under current law, if that happens, there's automatic across the board cuts to Social Security to make up for that. We could wait till the last minute, but that's going to make it a much more expensive proposition to fix, and much more likely that people will face pain. So I think we should get about this now. We should be talking about it now. We shouldn't be pretending that doing nothing is protecting benefits when we're on the track right now under current law to see across the board cuts of 20% if we don't act. So part of my effort on fiscal responsibility is to really look at our trust funds and make sure that they're solvent. Also, I don't want anyone in this room, which I understand is likely to be older, to be facing any kind of benefit cuts. But I also want someone who's 30 years old who doesn't believe in the system at all to have the same access to it when they need it further down the road. Let me say one other thing we did, which is about prescription drug coverage. We passed last year a bill that will allow Medicare to negotiate prices for drugs for the first time. It will result in a savings to seniors so that no one pays more than $2,000 a year out of pocket at the pharmacy counter. Prices can't go up faster than the rate of inflation. And insulin will be capped at $35 a month. It'll save the government about $200 to $300 billion over the course of 10 years. So it's good fiscal policy. I could tell you a little bit about my fight with Speaker Pelosi about it, was that she wanted negotiation to happen that the day the drug was launched. And I tried to explain to her that if people making risky investments aren't able to recover their investment, over a course of a period of years, they won't make those investments and we won't get the same drug discoveries. Like I said, that's really important to San Diego. We were able, not painlessly to come up with a amendment to the law that would provide a period of time for drug discovery to recoup its investment and still produce those results I just talked about. So I think that's really going to be good for seniors, and that starts to kick in right now. There's just announced the first drugs that they're negotiating. And then one more comment I just want to say about homelessness and veterans. Look, I really commend. I know it's hard to deal with housing. I commend the mayor and council for meeting those requirements. I know 900 sounds like a lot. I bet, and I would think that I bet that they've paid really close attention to it and think about housing as an investment that actually can improve a community, not take away from it. And I think we did that when I was on the city council in Bird Rock. We used some new housing to pay for some things and actually created more walkable streets and stuff. So I hope you'll be open to that imagination, because homelessness occurs where rents are high. Rents are high where housing is hard to build. California makes it impossible to build housing. And I really appreciate Coronado being willing to do its part, and certainly will support that. Hope you will too. Housing costs in San Diego are about 115% above the national average. And in terms of veterans, we don't have a lot of direct impact on housing in the federal government, but we do provide veteran support. They're called these veteran assisted supportive housing, VASH vouchers, for vets who fall on hard times. I did pass a law and introduce a law that allowed vets with other than honorable discharges to get those benefits. They're on the streets too. They weren't eligible before that. We also really stopped efforts under the previous administration to cut those benefits, because veterans are a relatively high percentage of our homeless population in this county. I think that Howard and Jean Somers are there. I want to just thank them for their work. They spent a lot of time coming to Washington, D.C. As a result of their own tragic experience with their son, trying to prevent veteran suicide. I helped introduce and pass the Sergeant Daniel Somers Network of Support Act, which will establish a network of support in both the DoD and Veterans Affairs, so that service members and their families can be in contact with these folks and understand the challenges that they're coming through and prevent isolation and suicide. I know that's important to this community. Finally, look, I don't know what's going to happen with the Republican caucus. And I don't want to speak in a partisan way, because gosh knows, Democrats, we have our problems. But I feel terrible for the party right now, because I think that the 20 people or so who are really causing these troubles don't represent where the Republicans are. I think, Republicans want to be that party of Ronald Reagan that's about personal responsibility, national defense, fiscal responsibility. And I think that I feel bad that they have been so affected by this really anti-government kind of attitude that they've seen. And Kevin, is kind of a friend of mine. He's not dead. He is kind of a friend of mine. And I think he was really doing the best he could, but it seems like an impossible job. So they sort of took a timeout. Everyone's time to cool off. I think that's probably a good idea. And they're going to go about the business of picking their leader. It's always been up to the majority party to pick the leader, I think, the speaker, and I think that tradition is going to continue. I would just say that I would be happy to work with them if there's a way that they would want to work with Democrats, and I think there's a lot of us who could be constructive. Kevin announced he didn't want to work with Democrats at all. That wasn't what he wanted to do, and I think he wanted to force his party to take this step and see if they really would. But gosh, I think he would have found 25 or maybe even 50 Democrats who, if we would have changed the rules away from this craziness and been able to prevent this, we might have been able to save him. But anyway, that we are where we are, and we will pick it up and finish it off. We've got about 40 days until the next fiscal deadline while we do appropriations bills. So I hope this doesn't get in the way of that. We did cancel the 2 weeks we were supposed to be home. I was supposed to be home this week and next week. Most of that will be in DC now, because we're trying to get our appropriations business finished, and I think that's appropriate. Mr. President, I've sort of taken up a lot more time than I expected talking, but do you have any particular questions you'd like me to address?
Well, thank you, Congressman Peters. Yeah, actually, it's perfect because we have about 5 minutes left, and that's exactly what we were kind of looking for. So we will start in the live audience here, and I'll ask Joe to see if there are any questions from Zoom land, and we'll take a look at those alternately from the live audience here. Here in the room, do we have any questions for Congressman Peters? Past President Dan Orr.
Congressman Peters, my question is, when was the last time you guys all passed a legitimate budget, not a continuing resolution?
So it's a good question. I have to tell you that the vehicle for us is not necessarily a continuing resolution. So just to get the terms, a continuing resolution is a resolution that funds the government forward at the same levels from the previous year. Okay, so we can't figure out what to do. You do a continuing resolution. We usually do continuing resolution. The appropriate use of continuing resolution is to just get us a couple more weeks usually so we can finalize the appropriations. We're supposed to do appropriations in 12 different areas, and I must say I'm not sure that that's happened since I've been in Congress. But it's not a continuing resolution. What we come out with is called an omnibus, which is not 12 different bills, which would be regular order from each of the 12 subcommittees of appropriations, or 12 areas of appropriations, but it's one big appropriations bill that kind of comes together at the end. It's frustrating to a lot of the members who work hard on these things that, it's sort of opaque as to what gets in and what stays out. But that has been the more common thing, not a continuing resolution, but the omnibus. And I think there's a real effort by Republicans to force us to do our 12 appropriations bills, which is, I think I would welcome. We need to spend a little more time in DC than we do. Frankly, we spend a little too much time traveling, but that's also above my pay grade, setting the schedule.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question.
We got one from Zoom.
One from Zoom. Oh, we do have one from Zoom.
Are you in favor of not taxing military retired pay?
I am. Yes, by the way, I think we're one of the only states that does that, and gosh knows, California has made its contribution. I would favor that.
Okay, we'll take Wayne will be the last question.
Thank you, Congressman Peters. I spoke to you many years ago about suicide prevention for the Coronado Bridge,
Right.
San Diego Coronado Bridge. And at that time in your office, you were going to try and work on it. I know Caltrans is talking about getting something done. When the bridge closes for suicides or suicide attempts, it affects many people, naval bases and everything else. Do you have an idea about when that's going to be done?
I would say, is it Wayne? I'm sympathetic to that. I think the two issues are that that's a state bridge, and might be hard to get federal money for it. My federal priority right now for Coronado is in the water, and I don't know how I could make two really big asks at the same time. To be honest with you, I really, as the councilman said, I mean, we've got an uphill battle that we have to win on this sewage issue. And that's my priority right now. I support the idea of adding suicide protections on the bridge. I just think that's kind of a priority issue for me right now. By the way, I didn't mention that the Navy SEALs themselves, if you know anyone who's an officer, it would be helpful if they spoke up about this too. When you talk to any Navy SEAL, they say we're swimming in feces. And when you talk to the brass, they say it doesn't affect our training. We just, we continue our training. What they don't tell you is they move it out of the water. And that kind of doesn't help me in DC. If you can tell anyone to let them know the truth, that would be helpful. But I really appreciate the chance to talk to you all. It is a great honor to represent you in Congress. Again, Marianne is there, Jason from my office as well. We are really committed to the sewage issue as our top priority, and we're gonna keep at it till we get it done. Anyway, thanks for having me.
Congressman Scott Peters, on behalf of the Coronado Rotary Club, thank you and thank Mary Ann. Thank you very much for making the time to be with us today, and we certainly understand the environment you're dealing with here just in the last 24 to 48 hours, and we wish you well, and we wish our Congress well to get normalcy reestablished there, and we know you'll do your best part on that. We're delighted to have you serve us here as our representative, and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And with that, I'll prepare to close the meeting. We will be meeting at CCYC next week, and our topic there will be cybersecurity, where we'll hear from Lance Mueller, who is the Chief Information and Security Officer at Sempra. So, fellow Rotarians, go forth, have a wonderful Rotary week, and remember, service above self.